Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Wednesday. Hi, hello, and how the heck are you? It's great to be with you on this Wednesday for the next 3 hours. We have got a jam-packed edition of 580 Sports Talk for you. We thank you for being along with us on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And, of course, we welcome our video viewers, those of you watching either live or later on taped on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on our Facebook page, WIBW News. If you are watching on video, you see me. My name is Dan Lucero. You don't see anyone else, but I promise that'll change. We've got the, once again, the revolving door, the cast of characters today on the show. Brendan Dworzinski will be along in just a little bit. Spencer Dupuis is questionable. We hope to hear from him at some point on today's show. We've got 2 interviews coming your way. Today, it is K-State Day. I dressed for the occasion, clearly. That wasn't intentional. I had another outfit picked out this morning, and then my 5-month-old son, well, let me put it this way. Have you ever seen The Exorcist? Yeah. So I had a wardrobe change this morning. And so I'm wearing this. I've got my Wildcat hoodie on, a K-State cap on because I like to coordinate. I like to match. But I look good, and I dress for the occasion because it is a kind of a K-State kind of Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk because we've got our Wildcat Wrap-up with the great Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joining us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Also, bottom of this hour, it's our K-State player profile. Brendan handled it for me earlier this week. I was on daddy daycare duty, so Brendan stepped in, pinch hit, in the K-State player profile, talked to sophomore defensive end Travis Bates, a transfer into the K-State program this year. Had a good time with the conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it. We will bring that to you a little bit later on in this first hour. So lots of K-State stuff today on the show. We're also going to talk some K-State basketball. They won last night. That's good. There's not much else to say that's real good, frankly, after last night's 18-point win over literally the worst Division I team in the country. You can't play a 40-minute game with those guys and give a lot of confidence in where your team is at right now. And that's an important distinction to make, that where Kansas State men's basketball is on November 20th does not have to be where it is on March 20th. There's a lot of season left, a long way to go. And teams notoriously can sleepwalk through some of these midweek bye games at home because you don't have to lift much more than a finger or two to win those games. Hell, KU wasn't exactly convincing in the first half of their win over UNC Wilmington last night. So it happens. You don't play your best basketball. That's one thing. But to play a 40-minute game against a team that lost to Mizzou by 72 points. That's not a joke, by the way. They lost to Mizzou by 72 points. And I'm not here to besmirch Missouri basketball. Their record does enough of that for me. But Mizzou's expectations for this year are not what K-State's expectations are. And so Mizzou beat that Mississippi Valley State team, by 72 points. And K-State had to call a timeout at the under 4 media timeout because their lead was down to 10. And that can't happen. So we got some questions. And again, a lot of season left for K-State to answer them. But we have some questions. We're going to talk about that. We'll get Tim Fitzgerald to weigh in on those as well. That's come up in the 4 o'clock hour. And we're going to talk about the Chiefs. There's some Chiefs news today we'll get to. Again, trending in a good direction for Isaiah Pacheco. At this point, I would be more surprised than not if he didn't play on Sunday against the Panthers. Charles Omenihu, who's also trending in a good direction. And some good news, perhaps, on Hollywood Brown maybe being back for the end of the regular season. Being able to get him a game or two before the start of the postseason could be really beneficial to the Chiefs. We'll talk about that. But also, we're going to start the show with a gripe I have. And I kind of alluded to it on Monday's edition of the show when we were talking about explosive plays, and the Bills had a bunch of explosive plays in the win over the Chiefs on Sunday, and the Chiefs didn't have but one of them, just one. And I think that's a function of a lot of things. But mainly, I want to talk about driving carpool in a Ferrari. That'll make sense in a bit, I promise. But I want to talk about driving carpool in a Ferrari because I think that's what the Chiefs are doing. We got that to talk about. Plus, of course, all of the other things you've come to know and love from a Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. We'll do a little One Gotta Go later on. What is wrong with you is coming up on the show today. Our 580 Sports headlines at the top of the 5 o'clock hour and so much more. Plus, your thoughts, of course, are always welcome on the program. You can chime in one of two ways. We have a wide open text line for you, 785-272-9429. That is the text line number. Or if you are watching live on YouTube, and we encourage you to do so then you can look at us make these words with our mouths and faces on a daily basis. We are on YouTube. The channel is 580 Sports Talk. If you are watching live on YouTube, there's a live chat function, and you can jump in and you can comment and interact with each other and interact with your hosts. And it will be plural at some point. It's singular right now, but it'll be plural at some point. You can interact with us throughout the show. So we welcome those of you. We see Trevor and Tyler, Paul, Mark H., Vance. You guys are in so far this afternoon. Welcome to all of you. Trevor, I'm sorry I didn't say very nice things about Missouri basketball. They didn't win a conference game last year, man. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say, but again, like I said, their record is meaner to them than I could ever possibly be. Also, a welcome back for Mark H. Thank you very much. I was not on the show yesterday. I was in Liberty, Missouri for some Washburn women's basketball. I'm the good luck charm, apparently. I'm the fourth different person to call Washburn women's basketball this year just because of scheduling conflicts, and I'm 1-0 behind the mic. Washburn women got their first dub last night, 80-58 over William Jewell. So congrats to Laura Westling's squad getting off the schneid, and they may kidnap me and force me to go with them for their next game. We'll see. Their assistant coach, Mark Barrero, intimated as much, and he may not have been kidding. So we'll see. But no, thank you. I am glad to be back. Missed you guys yesterday. So I am glad to be back with you today. And as promised, I'm going to talk about driving carpool in a Ferrari. Let me start again. I've never been like a diehard gearhead, like a car guy in the way that some of you are car guys. Like there are people out there who can identify a sports car or a muscle car just by the sound the engine makes when it starts up. You know, real like Memphis Reigns and Gone in 60 Seconds type stuff. I admire that if that's your thing. I've never been that hardcore into cars, but I also know a nice looking sports car when I see one. And I can admire, like anybody else, a fine piece of automotive engineering, like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. And of course, when you're a kid, those are the dream cars, right? You dream about having a car like that because they're sleek and their colors pop and they go fast. They are muscle vehicles. Finest engineering you can find. Ferraris, Lambos, the like. I've always been envious of those cars. But what if you had one? What if you had a Ferrari? You were lucky enough to have this enviable automobile that can go over 200 miles an hour, that can bend corners, that makes people's jaws drop when it's out on the street. What if you had a Ferrari and all you did with it was drive the kids to school in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon? What if all you did was take carpool? What if all you did was go and pick up groceries in your Ferrari? You might feel, and other people watching you take the Ferrari through the carpool line might think, that's kind of a waste of that beautiful vehicle. Why isn't that thing out there drag racing or doing laps or going as fast as it can possibly go? Why are we driving carpool in a Ferrari? This is a tortured and extended metaphor, but Patrick Mahomes is the Ferrari in the metaphor. And the Chiefs are using Patrick Mahomes this season to drive carpool. And it's starting to really upset me. Matt Verderam had this stat on Monday when he joined us, our NFL insider. And I could not believe it when I heard it. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, okay, yeah, I guess that does make sense. There are 34 qualified quarterbacks in the National Football League this year. 34 quarterbacks who have thrown enough passes to be qualified in the way that you can appear on statistical leaderboards. Of those 34 quarterbacks, there is a stat called average depth of target. This is a really simple stat. How far are you throwing the ball down the field on average? How far away is the ball either landing in the hands of a wide receiver or on the turf? What is your average depth of target? Patrick Mahomes ranks dead last in average depth of target. Patrick Mahomes, the 2-time MVP, the 3-time Super Bowl MVP, the best quarterback I've ever seen, the best quarterback in Chiefs history, not by a little bit, record setter, trend setter, huge arm, risk-taking ability. That Patrick Mahomes, that Ferrari that Chiefs fans waited 50 years for, is dead last in the National Football League in average depth of target. That is appalling. There is no excuse. Look, you can look at who the Chiefs have at wide receiver. Yes, number 1 wide receiver is DeAndre Hopkins. He just got here. Number 2 wide receiver is Rashee Rice. He's out for the year. Number 3 wide receiver is Hollywood Brown. Haven't had him all season. Not going to have him till late. Number 4 wide receiver is Juju Smith-Schuster. He's always hurt. Number 5 wide receiver is Xavier Worthy. He's a rookie. I understand. Travis Kelce's getting old. I understand that too. The decline is very real for Travis Kelce this season. All of those things are true. None of those things are an excuse for what the Chiefs' passing offense is. Because what it is right now is a waste of a generational talent in a year of his prime. Because no offense, I don't care if it's me and you and Brendan and Spencer running routes, for Patrick Mahomes to have a passing offense that looks like this, it cannot happen. It should not happen. And obviously, it has not been a hindrance to the Chiefs' offense being able to function at least well enough to be 9-1, to have one of the best success rates and EPAs per play in the NFL. But it has got to get better if the Chiefs are going to three-peat. Because you saw in the Buffalo game, when you've got great teams on either side of the line of scrimmage, explosive plays make a difference. Explosive plays set you up for the scoring drives you need to put together against the elite defenses. Because the better the teams you play are, the better their defenses are, the harder it gets to put together those 11, 12 play drives that the Chiefs have mostly thrived on this year. And the fact that the Chiefs can be, again, as efficient as they have been offensively without some of those splash plays, that's a testament to the offensive line, to the skill players on hand, and certainly to Patrick Mahomes. I am not sitting behind this microphone and saying, Patrick Mahomes is a bum. Patrick Mahomes is washed. I guess I did just say those things, but I don't mean those things. Those things are not true. I do not believe them. What I do believe is that the Kansas City Chiefs passing offense is gross, and it is a misuse of Patrick Mahomes. It is the functional equivalent of driving a Ferrari to pick up the kids from daycare. And I want to understand personally whose fault it is, because it's really easy to look at coaching. It's always easy to look at coaching. You point the finger at the coaches. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. And not even Andy Reid in this case. I think most people look at this as a Matt Nagy problem, because Matt Nagy's offenses, when he finally got a chance to drive the bus and honk the horn when he was the head coach in Chicago, Matt Nagy's offenses were a little like this. And you could understand it back then because he had very limited quarterbacks. Mitchell Trubisky is many things. One thing he is not and could never be on his best day was as good as Patrick Mahomes. But it does feel like the passing offense right now is not even giving Mahomes an opportunity to make the kind of throws that a quarterback with his arm talent should be tasked with making, regardless of who the wide receivers are. It was another point that Matt Verderam made, our NFL insider, when we had him on the show on Monday. We were talking about the quarterbacking display that was Sunday Night Football with Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. And yeah, Joe Burrow's got 2 top 15 wide receivers in the NFL. Brendan Dworzinski's in the studio, by the way. I want to bring him in on this conversation. Brendan.
Dan.
T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. I'm wound up. I'm wound up.
I can tell. I've been looking forward to this all day, frankly. I'm upset I was in a meeting. I was seeing, dealing with some important business, and I wasn't able to get in at the start of the rant.
Well, you're in now, and we appreciate having you. The wide receivers Joe Burrow has, Chase, Higgins, those 2 top 20 guys in the league, would you say?
Chase is top 3, and Higgins, around 20 at the very least.
So, you understand, there's a lot of downfield stuff for those guys because those guys are studs. But Justin Herbert was ripping seam routes and out routes and layered passing concept throws and finding success to a group of wide receivers, among whom the best is who? Ladd McConkey?
Yeah.
And look, Ladd McConkey's already been a better NFL player than I thought he was going to be. Respect to the lad with 2 Ds.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnson, who we thought was a bust last year after 1 season. And 9 tight ends, because that's how Jim Harbaugh builds a roster. And Justin Herbert is making these fearless throws over the middle. Another guy I watch quite a bit of, given my personal allegiances in my life, Geno Smith. Watch some of the throws Geno Smith makes on a weekly basis. Now, Geno's got a good wide receiver group. He does. DK Metcalf is a top 20 guy in the league. Borderline top 10, if you ask me. Jackson Smith and Jigba has had a breakout second season, and Tyler Lockett's a really good player. He doesn't have great tight ends. Certainly doesn't have a Travis Kelce. But you watch Geno Smith make some throws. He's layering it in, dropping it in over the top of the defense, out breakers, in breakers, down the field stuff. Where is that in this Chiefs offense? Because I don't believe that it's a function of poor offensive line play. We have some comments in the YouTube. Greg chimes in. Reason Mahomes can't throw the ball down the field, his left tackle sucks. His left tackle has not been very good. Greg, you are right about that. I don't think that's the reason, though.
Yes, and I actually wanted to add on to that because I saw Greg's comment, and I appreciate Greg and everyone else chiming in.
Yeah, Vance says the same thing. He's getting sacked more often, getting rid of the ball quicker. He's not being allowed to go through his progressions. I think, look, failure in this case, however you want to look at this as a form of failure, has 1,000 fathers.
Yes, agreed. Do you think the Chicago Bears have a good offensive line?
Absolutely not.
I would argue it's one of the 5 worst in the NFL, and I think that's without question.
You know who else has a crappy offensive line? The Seattle Seahawks. Wretched. Their center quit football last week. Just decided he didn't want to do it anymore.
Yep.
27 years old. Just hung it up.
And Geno is averaging, this is per FTN Fantasies numbers anyway, 7.2 roughly average depth of target, 7.2 yards as the average depth of target. That is several spots ahead of Patrick Mahomes. I brought up the Bears, though, because they have an undeniably awful entire, it's not just left tackle. It is the entire offensive line except their right tackle, who's good. He's 15th in the league in average depth of target. So the Bears were throwing downfield with 4 dudes who can't block. So I don't buy the excuse that the Chiefs can't throw downfield because one position can't block.
Part of the reason I think that it's a little on the concepts. Did you happen to see, I forget who had this. I want to say it was in Nate Taylor's column in The Athletic, friend of the program, Chiefs beat writer for The Athletic.
Shout out to Nate.
On the play where Wanye Morris got called for holding and it brought back a 3-yard Mahomes scramble, that was a passing play that broke down because DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy ran the exact same route to the exact same spot on the field.
Can't do it.
They ran a hitch to the same spot on the field. That's a waste of a play when that happens. And look, that's miscommunication. That's maybe Hopkins getting something wrong. He has, after all, only been on the team for a month. But I don't believe that this is a function of a lack of wide receiver talent. I don't believe this is a function of, well, the offensive line just isn't good enough, because there are teams with worse offensive lines who are letting their quarterbacks let it rip. And I don't believe this is a Mahomes thing, because if the whole thing was, well, Mahomes is being careful with the ball, they know they got a great defense, so he's being more careful with the football. Go look at his number of interceptions and tell me this is a guy being comfortable or careful with the football. If that's been Patrick Mahomes' thought, oh, I'm just going to be careful with the football, he's doing a lousy job. So I don't think that's it either. I don't think this offense is putting Mahomes and his pass catchers in position to make explosive plays. And on the rare opportunities that they have had to hit explosive plays, they've all been to Xavier Worthy, and they've all been missed. One a week keeps going by the wayside. One a week keeps getting missed.
They need to find... I don't know what the answer is, because I don't think it's as simple. It's never as simple as you want it to be. It's never as simple as just, okay, we're running drop back stuff. Like we're going to try running just like basic throwback drop back stuff. Like that's not going to be the answer, because this team is not built to do those kinds of things. So I don't know that you can say, well, why don't you just go to more play action shots? Because you're not built for that. You don't have the pieces to make that happen. But we know that the quarterback and the coach and the coordinator are able to draw up things that are more vertically based. You can do different things. You can try to get different looks. You can run out different personnel to try to find it. I think this comes down to coaching beyond anything else. What are the hallmarks of Andy Reid as a head coach?
The West Coast
hallmark
offense.
Traits.
It all goes back to Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren tree, the West Coast offense.
You took the shortcut to get where I was going. I was thinking more like he is innovative. He is stubborn. Let me repeat. He is very stubborn. By the way, did you know that he is very stubborn? This is what he has done his entire career. And they've always had these West Coast concepts built into the offense. You go back to that 6-touchdown game, Mahomes' third career start, week 2 against the Steelers, 2018. You know, he wasn't throwing all bombs in that game. They were doing fly sweeps to Tyreek Hill at the goal line. They were doing a lot of short stuff.
Yeah.
Right off the rip, you could see the bones of that, but plus all these air raid things that Patrick Mahomes had done in college. Because why wouldn't you try to make your young quarterback comfortable?
And that's just it. It's not me sitting behind the microphone saying every third play should be de bomb from NFL blitz.
Mm-hmm.
They should just be throwing deep for the sake of throwing deep. No, that's not necessarily it. But there have got to be more things in this passing offense that give the receivers a chance to work open downfield. And I don't think whatever they've got is working, because I think a lot of those long developing plays are the plays where we've seen Mahomes eat sacks.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to coaching, because I think this is Andy Reid going back to the well, because he's had Patrick Mahomes for a long time. Patrick Mahomes is not the guy on a Texas Tech anymore. Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech upwards of a decade ago at this point. And I think this is a coaching staff kind of falling back on their laurels a little bit. And I think that's the biggest issue. I think part of it is Mahomes, too. And I agree with Matt, maybe not as strongly. I wouldn't say the Chiefs have a Mahomes problem. I do not think he has been his best.
Right.
But I don't think he's a major issue. Now, I will say this, and we don't have a camera right in front of the computer anymore where I am sitting, but I do want to point out to you, Dan, because you can see it, and I will hold it up here. Not a great white balance. You can't quite tell. While we have been sitting here, you had mentioned something about how the Chiefs should be able to move the ball downfield, even if it was you, myself, and Spencer who are running routes.
Okay.
So I drew up a passing concept with you, me, and Spencer running routes. Spencer is our inline tight end. He's our Y. He's running a 3-yard hitch over the middle. He's the check down guy. You are our slot receiver. You're coming in motion. We're starting 2x2.
Okay.
And then you're coming in motion to the field side of the play.
So we can figure out if we're in man or zone, right?
Yep, exactly. You're gonna run a slant.
Unfortunately, I will be winded after going in motion.
Probably.
That will be a problem.
That's why I have you running a slant. You're not going vertical.
Okay,
you're running
good.
a slant.
That's
I'm the vertical threat here. I'm the vertical threat. We're going up against too high. And this sounds like a joke, but I'm also making a point here. Just because you're facing 2 deep safeties, the too high shell, does not mean you can't test it downfield. It's just a matter of, are you willing to test it downfield? Because in this play, I drew up with this pen that I didn't even know I assumed it was red. It's a red pen. I thought it would write in red. It writes in blue. I drew this up. I got outside coverage on me. I'm going vertical. I get inside leverage. Boom. Goes to the post. Wide open 50 yards touchdown. They get inside leverage. Boom. Comeback route outside. I'm a pretty heady receiver. I've got a good connection with Patrick Mahomes. They give me the choice there.
6'2",
There
you
are
put it on
options.
your back shoulder. Yeah.
You can find options to make this work. That's why I think this is a coaching thing. You've got 4 really good offensive linemen. I know the left tackle spot is bad, very bad. You can make up for it. You've got guys who can go get the ball. You just traded for one of the best ball getters in recent memory in DeAndre Hopkins. You can find a way to make this work against any defense. It's a matter of if you're willing to take the shots to do it. And I do not think the Chiefs have been willing to take those shots nearly enough this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it has been frustrating. They got 9 games figured out, And like, I'll always bet on Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes coming up with a solution. But looking at the leaders for depth of target, how often are you throwing the ball downfield and seeing Mahomes at the bottom, the dead bottom of that list? It hurts my soul. It's like seeing the Ferrari in the carpool lane. It hurts me. It hurts me because I know that car is built for and capable of so much more. We got to take a break. We got some Chiefs news out of their practice today, and we've got our K-State player profile coming up this hour. Travis Bates, sophomore defensive lineman. We'll talk to him a little bit later on. That's all coming up. We're just getting started on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. .335 on 580 Sports Talk. Thank you so much for being with us. Dan and Brendan kicking it with you on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk with you until 6 o'clock. And we'll hand things off to the K-State Sports Network for K-State women's basketball, number 10 team in the country, hosting Milwaukee tonight. They've already played Green Bay. Now they play Milwaukee.
It's the Brat Tour.
I do not know if Sheboygan or Beloit are on their schedule. That's Beloit, Wisconsin, not the Beloit High Trojans.
Yes. Beloit does have a college.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Also had a minor league baseball team, too. The Snappers.
Yeah, they are.
I think they're still the Snappers.
Beloit, Wisconsin, probably not a town you need to visit more than once.
Duly noted. I don't know if they're going to put that in their board of tourism video or anything, but Beloit, no need. Yeah, you're good.
Wisconsin has a lot of satellite universities in their system.
The UW system is vast, and most of them are really good at football, like Wisconsin Whitewater, former home of current KU coach Lance Leipold.
Do you know how many, or do you know what the only D2 school in Wisconsin is?
Oh, it's not Platteville.
No, Platteville's D3.
Yeah.
They're a recent move up. They were D3. Now they're D2.
You have to tell me.
Platteville.
That was
I'm sorry, Parkside. You just said Platteville. Parkside. Different P.
I have to say, wait a minute.
Had me confused there. Yes, Parkside. In Kenosha, another place you really don't need to visit.
Quickly wanted to field this. Lori in the YouTube live chat asked, do the Chiefs need a new offensive coordinator? I don't necessarily think so, because at the end of the day, whether it's Matt Nagy or Eric Bieniemy or Mike Kafka or whoever, they all answer to Andy Reid, and it all goes through Reid. So nothing I don't think will dramatically change unless you change the head coach. I don't think anybody's in a hot hurry to change the head coach. So I don't think a new offensive coordinator fixes what is bothering me about the Chiefs passing game. I just think there are some things that they need to consider adding and layering in as they go along. And maybe those are coming. Maybe they've been really conservative, playing stuff close to the vest early in the season, and they're going to break some stuff out later on. Maybe there's some stuff they had to shelve when they lost Hollywood Brown. I don't know. But I don't think the OC is the fix. Let's just say that. I don't know that it's not an issue that Matt Nagy is around and it looks like a Matt Nagy offense from Chicago, which isn't great. But I think at the end of the day, it's still more of an Andy Reid thing.
I mean, the game planning process essentially comes down to three guys, and I think Matt Nagy has the least say of any of the three.
You're probably
because it's Andy Reid first, it's Patrick Mahomes second, and then it's Matt Nagy.
I think you're probably right about that. Chiefs injury report is out for this week. They got the Panthers on Sunday. Full participation for Shamari Connor, Brian Cook, Kareem Hunt, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Limited participation for Isaiah Pacheco and Charles Omenihu. It sounds like Pacheco is closer than Omenihu, and like I was saying at the very top, I'd be surprised at this point if Pacheco doesn't play, at least in some capacity, on Sunday. Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider, we'll get more about this from him on Friday, but he has been saying that he's hearing that the recovery is going really well for Hollywood Brown and that there's a decent chance he could be back by the end of the regular season. You know, there was a lot of talk that he might miss the whole regular season, but Matt Derrick thinks that there's a chance that his 21-day practice window opens sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit on yesterday's show, some cryptic tweeting, and I'm glad I guessed right. You never know with the Chiefs. The tweets could mean anything, but Hollywood tweeted out the clock emoji, the alarm clock, which usually means, coming soon, the time's ticking, something like that. So I'm glad I guessed right, and it does seem to be a positive thing with him. You're going to see more of what the fully realized idea of this Chiefs offense was going to be once you have him out there. And frankly, I don't want to go too far because Rashee Rice was having a great start to the season, but is it ridiculous to say I kind of think the ceiling is higher swapping in DeAndre Hopkins for Rashee Rice? Not because Rice is a bad player. He's a very good player, but you didn't have the downfield go and get it guy before.
No, I think
and now you do.
Yeah, there's probably some truth to that, honestly. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Travis Bates, sophomore defensive lineman for the K-State Wildcats. He's our K-State player profile this week. That's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. 342 on 580 Sports Talk. Every week we do a K-State player profile. This week, Brendan pinch hit for me and chatted with sophomore transfer defensive lineman Travis Bates. Here's that conversation.
Back on 580 Sports Talk, it's time for our weekly K-State player profile, and today we are joined by one of the newest Kansas State Wildcats, sophomore defensive end Travis Bates, the transfer in from Austin Peay. And Travis, we'll get back to Austin Peay here in just a moment, but I wanted to start just big picture. What has this first year, this first season in Manhattan and with this K-State program been like for you?
It's been good. It's been a smooth transition. Just getting to learn the culture and the guys, and it's been fun. It's been a good time here in Manhattan, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I'm always so curious about the transfer process and how it compares or even is different from the recruiting process out of high school. What would you say was kind of the biggest difference from when you were being recruited as a high schooler to then being recruited out of the portal? Because I imagine it is a madhouse when you enter the portal.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, in high school, I didn't really get recruited too much just because I had a bunch of injuries and stuff. But definitely it's like a lot quicker in the portal. I only had like a week or week and a half to go visit schools. So I felt like I had to make that decision pretty quick. So that'd probably be the main difference, just like the time you have to make a decision.
When you were, visiting K-State and learning about Manhattan and Kansas State University and all that, what was the one thing, and maybe it was multiple, but was there any one thing that really stood out like, wow, this place is the perfect fit for me?
Yeah, really. The biggest thing is just how just involved this town is with the football program at the university. It's just awesome to see. When you come to Manhattan, it's painted purple. And that's just really awesome to see, and just the family culture that is preached around here in the facility, and that's just big time. Something you can't get at a lot of other places, so that's why I chose here.
Travis Bates is our guest, sophomore defensive end for Kansas State football. It's our K-State player profile here on 580 Sports Talk. You mentioned loving the guys and the chemistry and the bond you guys have, and I imagine in that defensive line room, usually all levels of football, college, pro, high school, whatever, the defensive line, I would always argue one of the groups with the most personality on the field, because you got to have some toughness, you got to have maybe some cockiness built in there as well. Tell me a little bit about this room and how you guys have kind of meshed together.
Yeah, it's been awesome getting to know these guys. I feel like we're as close as you can be. We feel like family. Just not even on the field, not even. It's just on the field, off the field. We feel like brothers, and just like messing around with them and just having fun, having a good time. It's been awesome getting to know them and getting to jive with them.
Was there anyone in this group, whether it was when you were taking a visit or when you finally got to campus full time, was there anyone who, I don't know about took you under his wing, but sort of showed you the ropes and told you all you needed to know about K-State and Manhattan, maybe showed you the right places to go when you're off the field? Did anyone kind of help you out like that?
I'd probably say George Trawlia and Ryan Davis. Those guys have been here longer than I have, and they just kind of show me around and show me what good spots to eat in town and that type of stuff. So those two guys were pivotal for me.
All right. So important follow-up question then. What is the place that has become your favorite to eat in town?
I gotta go Power Cat. I love Power Cat.
That's a good pick.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one. All right,
yeah.
So from that defensive line group, I guess we could expand it to the whole defense if you've got a good answer. But from the defensive line, who is the funniest guy in the room? Who is always the one? Who's the class clown of the group?
It's got to be Toby. Toby's always got something to say. He always cracks me up. He just says some crazy stuff, but got to be Toby.
Who is the messiest of the group? Who's got everything, overflowing from their locker? Whose house is the messiest? Who would fall in that category?
Got to be George Trawlia. He's my roommate, and I see it firsthand. He's pretty messy.
All right. Would you call yourself an organized roommate, or are you maybe a little bit messy as well now that you've been with him for a while?
I'm not like OCD neat, but I'm definitely I feel like more organized than some of my roommates, but I'm not crazy about it.
I can respect that. I'm right there with you in that same boat. So you transferred in this year, Travis, from Austin Peay FCS program. They've had a lot of success in recent years. What is the biggest difference between Clarksville, Tennessee, and Manhattan, Kansas?
I'd probably say just the town involvement in the school. I mean, as an FCS school, you don't get much coverage in the town that you're in. And so just the involvement in this town and this university. So it's been awesome to see that.
I'll ask you the same question about Clarksville, though, that I asked you about Manhattan. If we were going to go back, if K-State somehow ended up making a road trip out to Austin Peay, and we had to say, hey, what spots are we going to hit when we're in town? What is the number one must-hit spot in Clarksville?
Like spots to eat?
Spots to eat, spots to hang out, anything like that.
So, trying to think. There's this like sandwich spot. I totally forgot what it's called. But it's a really good sandwich spot. And then there's this Mexican restaurant called Rancho Grande. That was always where we went if we wanted some Mexican food. It's no Tex-Mex, but it did the trick while I was there.
Okay, what's the order? If you were going up there and, what's the go-to must-have order? I'm an enchiladas guy myself. That's always my go-to. Yeah. What would be your go-to order?
I'd probably say steak fajitas. Ooh. Big steak fajita guy. Usually get the for two because I can't just get one because I'm kind of a big guy. Gotta eat a lot. Steak fajitas all the way.
Travis Bates is our guest for today's K-State player profile, sophomore defensive end, native of Tomball, Texas, transfer in from Austin Peay. So you mentioned it's no Tex-Mex. So are you going to tell us then that Tex-Mex is your preferred, dialect, if you will, of Mexican food, being a Texas boy yourself?
Oh yeah, 100%. I grew up we actually had a place in Tomball called Rancho Grande as well. So kind of funny it's the same name, but I'd say Rancho Grande and Tomball is a lot better than Rancho Grande in Tennessee.
Same question then. Steak fajitas there in Tomball too?
Yeah, either that or they have this burrito called the Dirty Donkey, it's just basically what it is, just a massive burrito that just queso and beef. It's amazing.
That sounds like one of those things, Travis, where you see it on the menu and you almost have to order it. Like, this is so unique. I just got to try it once.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so one other teammate question for you. I like to ask every athlete, any level that we talk to over the course of the year, I love to ask this question. If you were in a car with two of your teammates and you've got one aux cord, one of your teammates, and you're allowed to pick yourself here too, one of your teammates is allowed to put on the music. They can be the DJ in the car. One of them, absolutely not, no way. They cannot put music on. Who gets the aux cord? Who doesn't?
I'd probably say the one who gets the aux cord got to be Donnie Ryman. I'm a big country guy, and he's that as well. So I'd let him have the aux. Who does not have the aux? A lot of people listen to rap, and I'm not a big rap guy. So I'd probably say Ryan Davis. He's a big rap guy. So I probably would not let him have the aux.
So you mentioning that you are a country fan, is it more some of the newer stuff, maybe kind of alt country, the classics? Where do your likes fall?
I'm a big classic country. I don't like much of the new stuff. A lot of 80s, 90s, some 2000s, but after that it's kind of like modern country, and I'm not a big fan of that.
No, I respect that. I'm right there with you on that. All right, the last question I've got for you, Travis. I'm going to make an assumption here. I'm going to guess on Sundays this year, your favorite team to watch is the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. So originally I'm a Cowboys fan, and obviously they haven't been doing too good. And so the Lions, got to cheer for my brother. Honestly, if I'm being totally honest, I don't really watch the games until they get about to the 40. Then I start really tuning in just to make sure that I don't miss my brother. But yesterday I actually fell asleep for his first kick. So I might not be the best brother.
Well, I'll tell you this much: not a whole lot of drama in that game for your brother's Detroit Lions when they beat up on the Tennessee Titans this weekend. What has that been like for those who don't know? That Travis's brother Jake is the kicker for the Lions. Made it through the USFL, if I remember correctly. Now with the Lions, what has this been like for you, for him, and for your family? For him to kind of have this meteoric rise.
I mean, it's been awesome. It's just, I mean, I've known his ability since he started kicking footballs in his sophomore year of college. I've known his ability, but I mean, he just needed that opportunity. So it's been awesome for us to just see him live out his dream, and just do it. And I mean, it's been killing my mom because she's like a nervous wreck whenever he gets out on the field. But she's getting better, and we're all loving it. A lot of our family goes to each game, and just seeing that is really awesome.
All right, we know that Jake's got a big leg, but if you were to kick a field goal, what's the farthest distance you could kick one from?
So actually, I grew up until I was about 10 or 11 playing soccer. So I have some experience kicking the football. And actually, I think it was July 4th this summer, I went home and Jake was kicking, and I was just messing around, and I actually kicked a 50-yarder.
50.
I have video proof. So I can't get called out. But yeah, 50-yarder.
Okay, so have you ever gone up to Coach Kleiman or anyone on staff, or even Chris Tennant, and said, "Hey, look, man, if you need a day off, like if you just want to take a day off, like I got this for a game."
Man, I don't know if I could be that consistent because I've tried in practice or before practice, and it didn't look that good as it did on that one video. But I mean, maybe if we need one, I might be able to go out there and get one.
Travis Bates is our guest, sophomore defensive end for K-State football, joining us for today's K-State player profile. Travis, thank you so much for the time, man. Been great to get to know you a little bit. Thanks so much for all the time, all the insight, and best of luck as the regular season wraps up here in the next couple weeks.
Appreciate it.
That was Travis Bates. We'll wrap up the 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk next. We got time for one quick one gotta go today, Brendan.
All right, 4 things that belong to members of the Kansas City Chiefs. One's got to go. It can't be a part of the team anymore. Patrick Mahomes' arm, Andy Reid's play calling, Chris Jones' ability to rush the passer, or Brett Veach's eye for talent.
Ooh. Well, if we go back to the top of the show, Or the
Or he
Chiefs,
might not have the arm.
yeah, if the Chiefs aren't using Patrick Mahomes' arm to the fullest, then we take that away and just have him be the best check down artist you've ever seen.
Yeah. I would probably go with Andy Reid's play calling. Yeah, I'd go with Andy Reid's play calling, which is generally good. And then there are times when it's not.
Yes. Like I've actually been much more happy with it on balance this year. A lot less nonsense and third and short near the goal line.
Yeah, they did the cute crap too much last year.
Yeah.
This year, I think it's been smarter play calling.
Coming
JB
up
on YouTube, he says Jones.
Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, Tim Fitzgerald for the Wildcat Wrap-up. A round of what is wrong with you. But first, what is wrong with K-State hoops this early in the season? We'll talk about it coming up. 580 Sports Talk. please.
We should have audio back on YouTube here.
Oh, what a relief. Thank goodness. We're back on the video stream. Thanks to those who are tuning in. Thanks to those who stayed with us through those brief audio difficulties on the YouTube. Again, 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. You can watch us on Facebook, WIBW News. You can also hit us up on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. That is 785-272-9429.
By the way, remember earlier this week when you made a comment about how Jake LeBon used to always say that there were gremlins in the computers?
Mm-hmm.
I heard someone else say that on a broadcast yesterday. Topeka native, voice of the Kansas Jayhawks, Brian Haney, they were having audio difficulties on their network.
Mark H. is up on the show lingo. He referred to them as gremlins in the YouTube live chat. So, yes, just part of the vernacular of the program. Every now and again, we get got by the gremlins, but don't get them wet.
Got gremlins.
It's alliteration.
That's fun.
Beautiful thing.
Like that.
We're glad you're with us. Coming up this hour of the show, we've got Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com to join us for the Wildcat Wrap-up. Plenty to discuss with Fitz out in Wildcat land. No question about that. We've also got another round of What Is Wrong With You, trying to take down our weekly champion, the guy who drove to Mar-a-Lago in a stolen vehicle.
Why would you ever think that showing up at the president's house, the president-elect's house, with stolen property was smart?
I don't think showing up anywhere in stolen property is a real good move. I think their first mistake was stealing the rental car.
Well, no, you are 100% right about that. That just feels like the kind of place where they are going to pay especially close attention to your vehicle. Hey, why is there an Enterprise sticker on here?
Why is there paper over the floor mats in the back? Just straight up paper laying out.
Why is there a little envelope that says Hertz on the passenger seat?
Whoa, you've got every pass for every toll road in America? You're quite the completist.
Oh, my God.
All right, that's coming up later on What Is Wrong With You. We're going to talk some college basketball. KU played last night, number one team in the country. They beat UNC Wilmington. They didn't play a great first half. I think they were only up 7 going into the locker room, and they came
5.
out. It was 5.
43-38, yeah.
And they came out the second half, blew the doors off the Seahawks, and ended up winning comfortably. There's not a whole lot to say about that game other than that. This was a very typical, they have at least one of these, if not 2 of these a year in the bye games these days.
Yep.
Where you're obviously looking ahead to your next opponent, and you sort of sleepwalk through an extended stretch of the game. And in the end, there's about a 5-10 minute stretch where you flex your muscles, and that's why you win.
Yeah, I went 1 for 2 in my predictions for the game yesterday. Hunter Dickinson was awesome. He went for 15 and 15 because he's the best center in America. And I said KU could probably win this game without DeJuan Harris taking a single shot. Instead, he led KU in scoring with 17 points. So, okay, they needed him to be good. AJ Storr had a bad game. You didn't have Flory the whole second half. That really sucked. I hope sounds like he's going to be okay. Probably felt like they didn't need him, honestly. And you pulled away. Zeke got to 10 points despite not hitting a single 3. Diggy Coit had a good game. So this KU team is scary because if they're not playing well offensively and are still doing what they're doing, yikes. That's scary if you're an opponent, and should make that Duke game on Tuesday awesome next week.
Yeah, a win is a win, and if you don't play a great half against an overmatched opponent, when you're the number one team in the country, as long as you get things cleaned up and take care of your business, people are willing to look past that because we know what that team is. Even with all of the transfers, we think we got a pretty good handle on what Kansas basketball is, what they are expected to be, what they are supposed to be. And we have seen them, even in a short sample size to start this season, look like that version of that team often enough that we have plenty of confidence, given also the head coach's Hall of Fame resume. 800 wins last night.
800 wins for Bill Self, yeah.
Unbelievable. What a number.
And that's just an afterthought because he had the big celebration last week.
Yeah, it's funny.
What a career.
It's like, wait, he did another thing that we got to celebrate? Yeah, 800 wins for Bill Self in his great coaching career. There's a lot of equity there. There's equity in Lawrence that does not exist in Manhattan. And it does not exist when you play a 40-minute basketball game with the undisputed worst Division I basketball team in America. Now, I think it's fair to look at last night's box score and say, wow, Coleman Hawkins and Brendan Housen went 0 for 15 from the field in the first half. If they were ever going to have a game like that, this is the team you want to have it happen against. Because if it happens to literally any other game on the schedule, K-State is going to lose. This was the one game they could afford a ball will not go in basket game from guys for whom the ball, A, usually goes in the basket, and B, are needed to put the ball in the basket for this K-State team. This was the night to have an off night for those guys. Sometimes you have an off night. You don't want to read too much into those performances in the first half in a vacuum. But setting that aside, Iowa State beat Mississippi Valley State by 39 points. Texas beat Mississippi Valley State by 46 points. And Mizzou beat Mississippi Valley State by 72 points.
That's a Missouri team that last year did not win a single SEC game.
People forget that. I brought it up, and then viewer Trevor in the YouTube live chat, our resident Mizzou fan, wasn't pleased with me bringing that up, but facts are facts. Anyhow, the point is that against Power 4 competition, the Delta Devils had been getting bludgeoned, and they were within 10 with 4 minutes to play last night. And that's simply not an acceptable effort. And then you add in all of the other stuff, like Brendan Housen going 0 for 6.5, or Coleman Hawkins starting 0 for 9, and then after the game saying, yeah, I give myself an F for my performance so far. And Doug McDaniel not playing at all. And Jerome Tang only being willing to say, yeah, it was a coach's decision when asked about it after the game. Jerome Tang is not ever going to be confused with a coach who is an X's and O's expert. Okay? And no. I don't say that to diminish his coaching acumen. I'm going to get to what I like about Jerome Tang as a coach in a second. But he's not a guy where you say, oh, he's a clipboard guy. He's going to draw something up. He's going to out-scheme an opponent. That's how they're going to win games that they might not otherwise win, is with their X's and O's execution.
And that is entirely okay.
Yeah.
Because it's not always those guys. Like,
how many X's and O's guys are there in college basketball? Like, Bill Self is the ultimate X's and O's guy. But how many other, like, coaches in college basketball do you look at and say, man, they can take any team in the country and beat any other team in the country because their stuff works?
Yeah, like,
There are not many.
No, I don't put Hurley in that category. I think UConn runs good stuff, but I don't watch UConn and think, man, they are just going to playbook you to death. No, they're going to beat you to death with rocks. That's what they're going to do.
They have giants.
Yeah, they have gigantic men who just eat you like they're polar bears.
6'5" condors for guards.
Yeah. And like, I don't think of Houston like that. Maybe like Drew is in the conversation because of all the zone stuff they were doing for so long.
Yeah, you think about it more from a defensive perspective.
Yeah,
when you talk about X's and O's, like guys who innovated like the no middle defense and the pack line at Virginia, the stuff Otzelberger does at Iowa
Is that a compliment?
State. No, it's not a compliment. I think that stuff's gross, but it works. It wins. Like you got to do what you got to do, right? So I don't think it's a demerit to Jerome Tang to say that I don't think he's an X's and O's coach. You know what Jerome Tang is? He's a vibes coach.
Yeah, if I may make the cross-sport comparison here, you know who I think is one of the very best coaches in the NFL who has never been the X's and O's playbook genius? Mike Tomlin.
Dan Campbell.
Yeah,
you don't have to be scheme guy, X's and O's guy to succeed. For example, Jerome Tang is 2-2 all time against the best X's and O's guy in the country, Bill Self. Beaten him twice in 4 meetings. So Jerome Tang not being X's and O's coach is fine. He's a vibes coach. Why did it work to the Elite Eight 2 years ago? Tremendous vibes on that basketball team. Why did it not work? Why did they go to the NIT last year? Vibes never felt right. Now, vibes is an intangible thing. There were tangible reasons. The power forward you expected to have never suited up. The point guard you expected to have never suited up. Those were like bigger deals than like you can quantify that in a way you can't quantify bad vibes. But things never really clicked for last year's K-State team. This year already, the vibes feel off. The vibes don't feel right. That's an intangible thing. And, like, I'm a believer in Jerome Tang's ability to get guys to believe in him.
Agreed.
That's why all of these transfers are there. They wanted to play for him because they see his vision, because he is a guy who can sell you on a vision, sell you on an idea, sell you on the belief of success. It's why I think over the long haul, he is going to have success as a coach. But there are questions about this K-State team right now that are going to need some answers. And the questions are tangible. The questions are a little bit schematic. Like, what do they want to be on offense? Do they want to be perimeter oriented? Do they want to be oriented around their point guard play? And Doug McDaniel drives the bus, and him being out would certainly account for maybe why it looked choppy on offense at times. Do they want to run through Coleman Hawkins as the point forward? Do they want to run through the post? Ugana Yenso, really good last night. He should be. Mississippi Valley State doesn't have anybody that big.
16 points in 12 minutes.
Yes. He should be that good against a team like that. Do they want to run through the post? What do they want to do? Who are the alpha dogs on this team? I asked that question last week coming out of the loss to LSU. Like, LSU knew who their guys were. They were going to go get a bucket. Who's that guy right now for K-State? Who's the guy that's going to stop a run or spark a 7-0 run all by himself? Who is that guy going to be? Again, maybe McDaniel's the answer. Maybe Jerome Tang's expectations are so high for McDaniel that if he's not meeting them off the court, this is going to be the consequence. That you can bench him for a game like this, get away with it in the standings. You didn't lose anything by winning last night. You didn't win by a lot. You take a hit in the Ken Palm or whatever, but like, you need the wins at the end of the year. You won the game without Doug McDaniel. That was always doable. But also, Doug McDaniel was suspended from traveling to road games for a solid 6 weeks last year for Michigan. Like, maybe this is just, maybe he's a can't get right guy, and even Jerome Tang can't get him right. Like, again, that's a question. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of season left to answer these questions. So I am not willing to sit here behind this microphone on November 20th and write off K-State basketball for 2024-25. But they have got to figure out, and Jerome Tang knows this too, by the way, because he said as much in the post-game press conference, I'm still trying to figure out who my best five is. I thought I knew. And tonight maybe showed me that I didn't. Like, I want to get the exact quote right, because he did effectively say something of that nature. Like, yeah, I went to five guys I thought were my best five, and it didn't work out quite the way that I expected it would work out. So I think there are a lot of questions to answer, but I still, on balance, think Jerome Tang will get there. Here's the quote from him post-game. Just as a staff, we're trying to figure it out. I don't know who the five guys that play the best together are yet. I think I do, but it didn't pan out tonight. So we're still trying to figure it out. And so sometimes I just got to play this guy more just to see what he can really do in this environment. I got to maybe not play this guy so somebody else can play. And it's not that somebody did something wrong or anything like that, which we are really just trying to figure it out. It's going to take us a little while, but none of that matters if we don't have the staples right.
I think that's a very good point. And I think the biggest, if you want to look at things pessimistically, or if you are worried about K-State, I think the big picture concern is not whether or not you have talent. K-State's got talent, lots of talent, in fact. Not all talent fits the same way. Go ask the New York Jets if just having talent makes a team good. Those pieces have to fit together. And, you know, the comparison is always going to be to that 22-23 team for K-State. That was the first year with Jerome Tang and this coaching staff, which has been wholly together this entire time. That team was also built almost entirely out of transfers, save for Marquise Noel and Ish Massoud, who, by the way, were previously transfers to K-State for the last year under Bruce Weber. But those pieces, when you look, Dan, at the best players on that team, they all fit together, maybe not seamlessly, but they all had a role that just seemed to click, and they played off of each other well. Noel could be a wild card, but he worked so hard with Jerome Tang, and what was the comparison we made? He was the train that got back on the tracks. And as long as that train stayed on the tracks, oh man, terrifying. He could be a great player. He could facilitate. He could score. He wasn't afraid to shoot late in the clock. You had Keontae Johnson, who was kind of the guy who brought it all together because he was the go get your shot anywhere guy. He was tough as hell. You had a dude in Desi Sills who was just just a ball player.
Glue
Some dudes
guy.
are just ball players. That was Desi Sills. You had Ish Massoud sized off the bench.
Big shot
David
Ish.
Gasson sized
Big
up, he had a good
12-ish.
shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like all these pieces, if not perfectly, but they fit together. They played complementary basketball among each other.
And it's harder to do that with a group of guys who are bigger deal recruits or bigger deal transfers, because they all come from somewhere where they were the man. Coleman Hawkins was the man at Illinois. Doug McDaniel was the best player at Michigan. Ugonna Nyenso was a recruit expected to go to the NBA because that's what you are if you go to Kentucky.
Yep.
Baye Fall, 5-star kid. CJ Jones and Max Jones at smaller schools were the best players on their teams. The only guy who was really like a role guy that's new to the team this year is probably Hausen. And that's maybe why he's had such success. Like,
could be.
Yeah, man, I'm here to shoot the rock.
So
I'm here to come off screens and shoot the ball. Give me the ball. I'm going to put it up.
So I don't even know about optimistic, but the kind of middle of the road answer here or opinion is that K-State needs to find out not even who the best 5 players are,
right,
but what the best combination of 5 players on the floor is. And I think that's what Jerome Tang was getting to with that comment that you just mentioned. The pessimistic view is these pieces just might not fit together. And that's worst case scenario.
Yes, worst case scenario, it doesn't fit. You see a lot more games like this where the offense doesn't really develop an identity, and these guys who have been great players at their previous stops. Achor is best player in his team last year.
Yes,
Forgot about him.
Also, dude, you've already mentioned him, and I know I am leading the charge of telling people Coleman Hawkins affects the game in more ways than scoring. He does not need 20 a game to affect a game. I will keep hammering that. That being said, he was the centerpiece of your class. He was regarded as, I think, the number 1 transfer in the country, according to The Athletic last year. Top 10 transfer in the country per 24/7. He has a personality that rubs some people the wrong way. Some people love it.
Yeah.
Some people not so much. You need him to be better. Do you know what he's shooting this year?
Not good.
24.3%.
Yeah.
Dude, you're 6'10". You should make 74.3% of your shots at the rim. He's shooting 24%, man. He's got to be better.
Yes. And I'll say this. I was critical of his effort against LSU. I will obviously be critical of that shooting night, but I can't be critical of his effort last night because he had 13 rebounds.
And that's an effort thing. I agree with that.
And
totally.
half of them on the offensive end. So, again, you talk about affecting the game in ways that go beyond scoring. Coleman Hawkins gets it. And that's the thing that I don't believe Jerome Tang would bring these players into his program if he didn't think that there would be buy-in, that these guys who had been the best players on their old teams would subjugate themselves, would give of themselves, sacrifice some of themselves to make the whole work. Even if that means less from each individual being part of the whole. That's why it worked 2 years ago. You had guys who were willing to do that, but they'd had practice doing that. That's the kind of players they were. That's who David Gasson had always been, who Ish Massoud had always been in their college careers. That's not who any of these guys have been. They are learning to be that as they go. And that is the optimist case for believing this can turn around, because the talent level is unquestioned. It's figuring out who's going to be the alphas and everyone else sacrificing, making that sacrifice, buying in fully. If you believe Jerome Tang is the leader of men that I think he is, then you believe that can happen. And it's going to have to. And in the meantime, it's going to look like this. And what that was last night was not pleasant. But what it also was a win. And at the end of the day, you couldn't afford to lose that game, and they didn't. So you take it and you keep moving forward. We got to take a break. We'll get Tim Fitzgerald's thoughts on that later on in the show. He's coming up in about 10 minutes or so for the Wildcat Wrap-up. But first, what is wrong with you after this timeout on 580 Sports Talk? It's What Is Wrong With You time on 580 Sports Talk. Two news stories competing today, trying to take down a story that I call The Guy Who Lived Here Did Crimes. Why Can't I? Gentleman who drove to Mar-a-Lago in a stolen car. Say he wanted to talk to the president-elect. Did not get to do that.
No.
Got to talk to a judge instead because, again, stolen rental car, in fact.
They were going to buy it.
Yeah.
His partner, whoever this woman was, they were going to buy a car together. And she went in to go get cash, and he just bailed. Also, don't leave the keys in the car.
No. For my story today, we're going to my home state of Colorado, where the transportation staff in the city of Boulder were dispatched out to the city streets on a special mission Tuesday, removing illegally posted traffic signs in at least 4 locations. This is one of those that's actually more funny than harmful. People had put up signs beneath other road signs that were profane in nature. For instance, below a sign that read speed limit 35, a new sign read speed limit, get off your damn phone. Elsewhere, a sign beneath a speed limit 45 sign read, don't kill any kids today. Further on, below another speed limit 35 sign, a sign read, speed limit, slow the bleep down. They looked professionally done, and so were the installations. The transportation department had to find a special tool to remove the signs from the posts. It's likely a lot of work went into installing the signs, so putting them up is probably just as tedious as taking them down. There are hopes that somebody can find the suspect involved and call the police. I'm going to throw up on the I am going to put up on the live stream on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, one of those signs. There it is. You can see the professionally made signs. This is not like somebody wrote on like cardboard and zip tied it to the post. These look like they are professionally done.
That's really funny.
I'll make any sign you want. Speed limit, get off your damn phone. Anyway, short and to the point, and the folks in Boulder County have to go and take those down. That is my story today.
That's pretty good. All right, my story for today, and hold on one second here, and I will pull it up because when we had technical issues earlier, this computer had to be restarted. So you'll give me just 1 second here, and I have a fairly funny story. I came across one that was absolutely disgusting today about a gentleman who was alone with nothing but himself and some baked goods at convenience store.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, horrible. Oh, and now my link is missing. Well, that absolutely sucks. All right, give me one moment. I will find my story, and we will have a damn good time.
Okay.
All right. I know where I found it. Give me 1 second, and I will get it. How the hell did this happen? It's a Google document. Oh, my God.
That's wild.
Okay. Here's effectively the story. Because now where I got the link is also not working.
Oh, dear.
A guy in Florida has filed a class action lawsuit against Netflix because of the buffering during the Tyson-Paul fight.
Oh.
He is trying to take Netflix to court because there was buffering. I'm sorry, buddy. That's not how that works. Breach of contract, I believe, is officially what the claim is.
Huh. Well, I'll tell you what. If Netflix thinks people are mad about buffering during that, imagine how mad people are going to be if they can't get the NFL broadcast right on Christmas Day. Imagine how mad Beyonce fans are going to be if they can't get it right for her halftime performance at one of those Christmas Day games.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be some civil suits and some lawsuits and maybe a march on Netflix headquarters, maybe some things mailed to Ted Sarandos' house.
All right, here we go. Found it. Netflix was sued this week in a class action complaint over the platform's streaming glitches. According to the case in the 13th Judicial Circuit Court of Hillsborough County, 60 million Americans were hyped to see Iron Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, versus YouTuber turned prize fighter Jake Paul. What they saw was the baddest streaming on the planet.
Nah, that's funny, though. That's a good line.
Yeah, that's tremendous. So, yeah, class action lawsuit. And Netflix's chief traffic officer is like, yeah, no, this ain't going to happen. Ronald Denton is the party who filed the class action lawsuit on behalf of others similarly situated. He accused the docs that Netflix had no access, streaming glitches, and buffering issues.
They're going to offer to pay that dude's Netflix for a year, and that's going to be that.
If that. you can share with one family member out of your house.
Shout out to Matt G watching the YouTube feed, 580 Sports Talk, a Boulderite who actually saw one of our signs in question
Oh, hey.
in one of our stories today. Greetings. Appreciate you tuning in from my home state. Who wins today?
Yours wins.
Yeah, the road signs. Does that beat guy who drove to Mar-a-Lago in a stolen car to see the president?
No.
I just want to know what he wanted to say. Like, sir, I have some ideas. Sir, I have some ideas.
Sir, please.
Do you think you could make me energy secretary? That continues as our winner on What Is Wrong With You. We'll come back with Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Tim Fitzgerald, publisher at GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We do it every Wednesday at this time. We call it the Wildcat Wrap-up. And boy, there's a lot to wrap up in Manhattan in the world of Wildcat athletics. Fitz, I'm going to start on the gridiron. I had never seen Chris Kleiman take a defeat as heavily as it was clear he took Saturday's game against Arizona State, to the point where his reaction gave rise to some rumors that he was maybe considering retirement. Now, he dismissed those out of hand in his Monday press availability, but what do you think accounts for the reason that that loss seemed to hit Coach Kleiman a lot harder than maybe some previous losses?
Well, there's been this backdrop now for like 3 weeks of something happening in the Kleiman family, or the extended Kleiman family, not exactly their household, that was weighing heavy on him. I know what it is. It's tough. But he also said on Monday they heard some good news between those two press conferences, and he seemed much more cheerful. But I think everything just sat down on him all at once. The health things going on in his family, his health things. Let's not forget he almost passed out on the sidelines. His team not playing well. His coach is not coaching well. I think it just all overwhelmed him at the moment of the post-game press conference, and he seems to be back to himself. He had a long staff meeting to talk about things. I'll be interested to see what those changes might be.
Yeah, he did allude to maybe needing to make some changes moving forward, and back-to-back losses, including kind of a dud late at home on Saturday, will certainly give rise to the feeling like things need to change. What does it look like to you needs to change in the short term with 2 games left in the regular season for these Wildcats to pull it together and finish the season strong?
I think they need to probably on the offensive side be a little more creative in the play calling, setting up plays for the future, using their talent in specific situations. I think we were all under the impression that Dylan Edwards would be used in special situations, kind of design plays for him. And apparently they had some stuff designed for him last week and it went out the window when he pulled a hamstring. So I think just a little more variety on that side of the ball, maybe sticking with some of the players that had to step up and did step up. Offensive line's got to be better. That's a bottom line. That's my thing is I would like Connor Riley, the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, to come out of the press box to the field to be hands-on with his line again. They need him. Defensively, the back end's got to pull their you-know-what together. The safeties have been really bad. Now the corners aren't playing great. In special teams, someone needs to learn how to center the ball for an extra point or field goal attempt. They all of a sudden they got 2 guys got the yips. They can't find one that can do it. And it was really costly against Arizona State.
Yeah, it's really strange because it's not just one thing you can point to, right, Fitz? It was kind of a systemic, all systems meltdown on Saturday, and the end result was a flat first half and a 21-point deficit at halftime in a game at home in prime time where you still had so much to play for. I guess, how do you think these players make sure that this isn't one of those proverbial losses that beat you twice? With Cincinnati coming to town, it's a team that I don't think is of Arizona State's caliber, but certainly good enough to beat you if you're not at your best. What do the players have to do? What's the accountability level like for the guys on the field right now?
We're going to find out. I mean, I was so shocked at the lack of engagement. They were so lackluster, lackadaisical last week. It really caught me off guard, to be honest. If that's the team we're going to see the rest of the year, K-State's going to take this from, what was once 7-1.
7-1,
and
yeah.
They're going to take it to 7-5 before we know it. And then they're going to go to a bowl game and probably be 7-6. But if they turn around and start playing better football like they can, they're going to be 10-3 at the end of the season. I mean, that's a huge gap, a 10-win season or a 7-win season. That's what's on the plate for this team. They have to decide if not being able to play for the Big 12 title is all they cared about. They're shutting it down, which I hope not. But also, just playing for some pride would be nice too.
We're joined by Tim Fitzgerald, the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. He joins us every Wednesday at this time for our Wildcat Wrap-up via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go check out GoPowerCat.com and go be a VIP member at 24/7 Sports. That way you can get into Wabash Station and get all sorts of great insight into what's going on with the Kansas State Wildcats. I know there has been a lot of negative reaction toward Connor Riley and the offensive play calling Fitz, and I know that because I'm a VIP and I was reading the message boards this weekend. Do you think that criticism is well-founded or maybe a little bit misplaced for the offense?
I'll say it's well-founded, but at times over the top. A lot of times
Sure.
with offensive coordinators, the plays work. I mean, the players execute them. The defense is in the right alignment. And other times, the same play with same alignment, maybe it doesn't work. So there's a little luck to this, but I wasn't particularly pleased with some of the sequences last week. I mean, I think they started every possession, or at least every first down maybe, with the run right up the middle. That didn't typically go for much. They just seemed timid to start things a little bit differently, do things differently. But then, guys, they went to that sped-up offense maybe too late in the second half. They probably should have done it immediately after halftime. And that seemed to get them going, got Avery into a rhythm, Avery Johnson, and the offense seemed to find a rhythm, as did the play calling. So I'm going to be interested to see if they come out going fast from the very start on Saturday.
All right, so the matchup on Saturday, taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. And I will admit, as I ask this question, I am just never going to be a believer in Scott Satterfield. I'm just not. They're so much better than I expected them to be. I am not even remotely a Satterfield guy, though. So with that being said, if K-State lost in this game, would it be because they beat themselves versus Cincinnati beating them? I know this is a pretty good Cincinnati team, but I feel like this is such a prime bounce-back spot for the Cats as well.
I don't want to take anything away from Arizona State because they came in and did what they needed to do and left. but K-State basically played one quarter of football, and it was 24-14. And I can say comfortably, with great confidence, if K-State had just played its game a little bit better, they would have won that game. And I feel the same way about this one. I think Arizona State's now more dangerous than they were in Manhattan because that was a big win for them and on the road. So now they take it home to go play BYU, but Cincinnati's coming in here on a 3-game losing streak. Kansas State's got a 2-game losing streak. Someone's got to win. And if K-State wants to continue to play, be part of this football season, they've got to play better. And if they do, they'll win.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Wildcat Wrap-up. We do it every Wednesday at this time. That's a lot of W's. Wildcat Wrap-up Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz will wow you, that's another W, with his coverage of K-State sports at GoPowerCat.com.
Okay.
Let's pivot to basketball. K-State won last night. That's nice. They played a 40-minute game with a terrible Mississippi Valley State team. That's not so nice. Let's start with Coleman Hawkins, because that's who your daily delivery was about on GoPowerCat.com. 13 rebounds last night. Jerome Tang didn't sound like overly displeased with what he got from Hawkins all around, and he's not going to be a 20-point-a-game guy. I don't think that's why K-State brought him to town to be a 20-point-a-game guy, but certainly he's got to be more than this, right? What are you seeing from him that's not allowing him to fit in? Is it an awkward fit? What is it that you don't like so far from what you've seen from Hawkins?
I don't like the effort. I mean, he did play a little harder last night. He actually acted like he was interested in rebounding the ball, but for the most part, certainly against LSU, he just looked disinterested. He didn't look like he was ready to play. Didn't look like he even really wanted to play and compete. And when you've got a guy that's clearly brought in to be your alpha, and he looks like he's bored and doesn't want to be involved in whatever's happening out on the basketball court, it sets a horrible precedent for your team. Overall, I think this team's effort, with a few exceptions, certainly David Kassan being one of them, is very lackadaisical about their approach to things. And I was a little fired up on today's daily delivery, basically saying, K-Staters will stick with you if you lose games. That's not the problem. The problem is they have no business. They have no interest in being around you if you don't put effort. If you're not going to represent the school in a way that makes them proud, then they're out. And we saw that. There weren't many students at that game. So they're flirting with disaster with their own fan base. Jerome Tang's asked the students and asked the public to come out and be more loyal. Well, now the tables are turned. It's their turn to go prove it. Go prove you want to win and be part of the K-State family. And they just haven't done that. And going to the Islands, maybe they'll get that done.
Doug McDaniel, a DNP. Jerome Tang wouldn't elaborate on it other than calling it a coaching decision. Obviously, there was an incident at Michigan last year with Doug that caused him to not be able to travel with the team for an extended stretch. How much of a concern is it behind the scenes with Doug, or was Jerome Tang just maybe using a game against a team of Mississippi Valley State's caliber to maybe make a point to the young point guard?
Could be either. I think it's pretty concerning. And, he had his big game and apparently decided he didn't need to do some of the things he needs to do to be ready for a game. And, it's disturbing. I don't know how Coach Tang's going to handle this, but I hope he doesn't do what Michigan does and just leaves him and lets him be around because he's a good player. If he's going to be a detriment to the team, get him off the roster, get him out of your locker room. I'll be very interested to see if Doug goes to the Islands, if he's part of this team come next week.
Fitz, do you have any worries that there might be, there's obviously enough talent on this team, but are you at all worried this early in the year that maybe these pieces just don't fit together?
Not really. I think it's all ego right now, of not wanting to play together in some ways. Guys, it's going to happen in the NIL era. You're just going to have some players that are more interested in their numbers so they can get paid than the team winning. And we're seeing it now. And I think that's part of what's going on. I think these guys are more concerned about their pocketbook than looking good. And obviously, if I was Coleman Hawkins, I'd be interested in impressing NBA scouts, and nothing he's doing getting 13 rebounds against that team last night. I'm just saying, if one of us had hung around the rim on missed shots, we might have gotten 10. That team was awful. That team can barely walk and chew gum. That team lost by like 80 to Missouri and 40 plus to Texas. They were tied with K-State in the second half. There's big problems going on here.
Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com will chronicle those problems and whether or not there are solutions. GoPowerCat.com. Him and his staff do an outstanding job covering the Cats. Subscribe today. Be a VIP member at 24/7 Sports. You can catch Fitz every Wednesday for the Wildcat Wrap-up. Hopefully, gladder tidings when we talk next time, Fitz. Thanks for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
I would agree. Thanks, you boys. Good to talk to you.
That is Tim Fitzgerald. We'll take a break, come back, wrap up the 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk after this. Our thanks again to Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, for joining us. Man, it is the daubers are down at the GoPowerCat.com VIP board.
Yeah.
A lot of I'm giving away my tickets. I'm done with the men's basketball team.
My toxic trait is I can't do it when KU loses because it just makes me sad. And it's not that I don't like K-State or you K-State fans, but sometimes when K-State has a really bad loss, I go right to the message boards to Go Power Cat just to see the reaction. The last few days, I've been fit to seeing some good traffic.
Yeah.
Also, if they ran one of those like tests that various social media companies do, like, 84% of posts on this website are negative, it might be 99% right now.
Yeah, it's the vibes are not great in Manhattan. Man, football needs to restore them. But football and basketball, they need to go to the Bahamas or the Virgin Islands.
Virgin Islands, St. Thomas.
Yeah, they need to go there and win, and football needs to beat Cincinnati.
I'll call it now. K-State wins this weekend.
I think they beat Cincinnati too.
Cincinnati.
I think they'll get it right. Like I've seen this coaching staff and these players still have enough equity with me. I think they'll get it right.
Agreed.
We got jam-packed 5:00 hours, just me the rest of the way. Brendan's out to the Washburn basketball coaches show. He'll be back with us tomorrow. I got one more hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk. And it's a solo mission from here on out. I am Dan Lucero. So glad to be with you. So glad you have chosen to spend some of your afternoon with us, with me here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And on our video stream. Hello to our live viewers. Hello to those of you who are maybe watching this not live, watching it on our archive on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, or on Facebook, WIBW News. However you're consuming the program today or down the line, thanks for doing so. Appreciate you being here. We got one more hour of the show today. At 6 o'clock, we'll hand things off to the K-State Sports Network, K-State women's basketball. That's something to feel good about for K-State fans. We were talking going into the break after we had Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com on that, boy, it feels like the sky's falling in Manhattan. Football's lost 2 in a row. Basketball is really unconvincing. Hasn't been a very enjoyable start to that season. And boy, 3 sour weeks can really bring the mood down in amongst the K-State family. But as Mark H. pointed out in the YouTube live chat, the women's basketball keeping up their end of the bargain, ranked 10th in the country. They've got Milwaukee tonight, not the Bucks, the Panthers coming to Bramlage. 6:30 tip-off. That means pregame right at 6 o'clock. Following that, you'll hear in its entirety tonight's edition of the... I'll check that. Let me make sure I'm not fibbing with you folks. Yes, the Chris Kleiman Show airs tonight after K-State women's basketball here on 580 WIBW. In this final hour of the show, Brendan Dworzinski earlier today, he is no longer with us on the program today because he is off to Skinny Sports Bar and Grill here in Topeka for the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show. I think it's the first full basketball edition of the season tonight. You're going to hear from the coach of the 5th-ranked men's team in Division II basketball in the country, Brett Ballard of the Washburn Ichabods. You'll also hear from Laura Westling, the women's basketball coach. Typically, those shows air on Thursdays. It kind of depends on the schedule. Sometimes they're on a Wednesday. Tonight, they happen to be on a Wednesday because Washburn's women are leaving Thursday so they can play an 11 a.m. game at Truman State on Friday. A little basketball for breakfast on Friday for the Ichabod women. Anyhow, Washburn Basketball Coaches Show coming up from 6 to 7 over on our sister station. You're home for the Ichabods, Country 106.9. And Brendan will have victories to talk about with both head coaches. Washburn men were winners last night over Pitt State in a game that does not count in the conference standings. Kind of like the K-State Arizona football game from earlier this year. A game that was never in doubt. Washburn controlled it fully, 189-71. Washburn women coming off their first win of the year after an 0-4 start. They went on the road last night to William Jewell and rolled the Cardinals 80-58. So that's what's coming up tonight. You should listen, or you should just go out to Skinny Sports Bar and Grill because every day is game day and every night is a tasty special. And go hang out with Brendan and the crew and say hi. Tell him I sent you. Tell him I told you to go and say hello to him personally at Skinny Sports Bar and Grill tonight. Anyhow, that's why he's not here, and that is why it is just me the rest of the way. But the reason I was mentioning Brendan is because earlier today he talked to Loren Ferre, the athletic director at Washburn University, and had a chance to get his thoughts on the recent changing of the guard in the football program, the dismissal of Craig Schurig after 22 seasons, what's next, what the search is going to look like. We had hoped to get some comments from interim head football coach Zach Watkins, but unfortunately weren't able to do so. So it'll just be Loren Ferre that you hear from a little bit later on this hour, talking about the future of Washburn football. Also, I have some thoughts on the MVP debate because it seemed to change based on one game. I'm talking about the NFL MVP debate. And also one player who is conspicuous by his absence. And I'll give you a hint. It's the guy I was talking about at the beginning of the show, comparing to a Ferrari that's being used to drive carpool. We will get to all of that. Want to hear from you? If you're watching live on YouTube, jump in the live chat. Lots of activity in the live chat this afternoon. We're talking about medical procedures right now. sharing different medical procedures that we've all had. That's a fun time. You should be in the live chat on YouTube. It's very lively. Myself, our other host, Brendan Spencer, we like to jump in throughout the show as you talk amongst yourselves and react to what we have to say on the show. Again, that's on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. The live chat is always lively. And you can also text the program, 785-272-9429. You can text the show every day, 785-272-9429. Let's get to some headlines, shall we? That's how we always start the 5 o'clock hour. Let's get to some headlines. We will start with the injury report for the Chiefs and the Panthers heading into their matchup in Charlotte this coming Sunday. It's all good news for the Chiefs. Only players that were limited are the players that are still coming off of injured reserve, Isaiah Pacheco and Charles Menahu. Again, reading between the lines, it sure seems like Pacheco's trending to play on Sunday. Andy Reid was fielding direct questions about how he and Kareem Hunt are going to coexist in the backfield, and fielding more questions about that than he was fielding questions about Menahu. So I think you can sort of, again, read the tea leaves and see that it sure feels like we're going to see Pacheco on the field for the first time since week 2 against Cincinnati. Charles Menahu remains limited, both Pacheco and Menahu. But the other 4 players listed for the Chiefs, all full participants today. Shamari Connor dealing with a thumb injury. Brian Cook has a rib injury. Kareem Hunt has a sore knee. Juju Smith-Schuster still dealing with that hamstring that cost him 3 games. But all 4 of those Chiefs were full participants in practice today. The Carolina Panthers had 4 players listed as DNPs, did not practice. Running back Miles Sanders, linebacker Jadeveon Clowney, guard Damian Lewis, who is sick, and defensive lineman Ashawn Robinson, who got a rest day today. So no worries with him. Following players were limited. Tackle Ike Ekwonu dealing with an ankle injury. He's the left tackle. That would be a big deal if he were limited or couldn't go. Cornerback J.C. Horn, who's always hurt. It is Carolina's best defensive back. Wide receiver Adam Thielen, safety Xavier Woods, defensive lineman LeBrian Ray, and linebacker Amari Barno also limited. Full participation for running back Jonathan Brooks and linebacker DJ Johnson. You might be thinking to yourself, I don't know who a lot of those guys are. And that's fine, because they're the Panthers and they stink. It's totally understandable. You might not be all the way up on your Carolina Panthers. I'm going to be completely real with you guys. LeBrian Ray and Amari Barno are made-up names as far as I'm concerned. I don't know anything about those guys. Not the first thing. But except that they were limited in practice today for the Panthers. So that's your Chiefs injury report. Next headline. It's a big one from the world of women's college basketball. As for the second time in a week, Kansas has secured a commitment from a 5-star recruit. So earlier, it was an in-state get for Brandon Schneider's staff, as Jalea Davis out of Blue Valley North committed, top 25 prospect in the country, 5-star, 6'2" small forward, committing to Kansas. That happened yesterday. I said earlier this week, that was yesterday. Today, another 5-star commits to Brandon Schneider. Keely Parks, shooting guard out of Norman, Oklahoma. Number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma, had offers from Baylor, OU, Tennessee, and elsewhere. She now is committed to Kansas. It is the first time that anyone can recall that KU has gotten 2 5-star recruits in the same class in women's basketball. We certainly expect the high star rating for Bill Self's recruits, but this is some serious work that Brandon Schneider is putting in on the recruiting trail for the KU women. And a lot of it stems from the fact that Samaya Nichols is in the program right now and is going to be in the program for this season and for next season and probably for her senior season, since it is far more uncommon for players to leave early to start their professional careers. And that is 2 years then that these 5-stars will get to play with Samaya Nichols. That's the selling point. She's that kind of player at Kansas, and also a Kansan herself. So big deal for KU that they're recruiting on that level. K-State's also recruiting on a high level. K-State got a high 4-star commit, I believe, not too long ago. I'm going to go and double check that. But they're also recruiting at a pretty high level, but 2 5-stars in the same class. for Brandon Schneider and the Jayhawk women. That is a big, big deal. And again, just stems from the fact there's a superstar in the making in that program. And congratulations to both the committed player, Keely Parks, and to K-State women's basketball for that. Next headline on our 580 Sports Talk headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. 25 modern era candidates have been named semifinalists for the 2025 Pro Football Hall of Fame class. I don't have as much fun debating the Pro Football Hall of Fame as I do the Baseball Hall of Fame. For one, I feel like I have a much better handle on what the standards for the Baseball Hall of Fame are. Even though I have problems with what the standards are, I like to argue and debate those players. I'm more of a baseball guy than a football guy. Maybe it's just as simple as that. But not quite understanding what makes a Hall of Fame like guard. What makes a Hall of Fame safety? I've always sort of felt like the Pro Football Hall of Fame, what's that old line about pornography? You know it when you see it. Or indecent art. Maybe it's not just pornography. Maybe it's just indecency. You know it when you see it. I feel like with a lot of these guys, Hall of Fame, you know it when you see it. But then again, how much attention are you paying to the interior line? Like Richmond Webb or Steve Wisniewski. Like great players. Like those are names I know. Those are names I remember like getting their football cards when I was a little kid. Richmond Webb, all-pro guard for the Dolphins. Steve Wisniewski played in the interior line for the Raiders for a lot of years. Jari Evans is another offensive lineman that's on this list. Like, I know that those are considered to be great offensive linemen. But do I have that gut reaction? Oh, yeah, Hall of Famer, no doubt. Put him in. I don't. I don't know what the standard is there. And so I don't know how outraged I should be that those guys aren't in the Hall of Fame in the first place. I feel a little better about knowing the standards for, like, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, the guys who put up stats, defensive ends, things like that, linebackers, I suppose. But offensive linemen are a little trickier to debate. And I feel bad if I say, okay, they're going to put 5 of these guys in, and it's just 5 skill guys. And I leave out somebody like Marshall Yanda, who's a great player. Willie Anderson, great tackle for the Bengals for so many years. Jari Evans probably deserves it too. But that's the other part of it, is that only 5 get in at a time, and the Hall of Fame is kind of backlogged. So, like, yeah, guys who don't get in first ballot, like Antonio Gates didn't get in the first ballot last year. That's a Hall of Fame tight end if I've ever seen one. I mean, you talk about standard bearers, the tight end position. Yeah, Antonio Gates. If this were baseball, he would have been in on the first ballot because you get 10 slots and you can vote for as many as you want. Antonio Gates cruises in under those standards, but it's different, again, for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Anyway, there are 25 modern era candidates for the class of 2025. These are the semifinalists. 5 of them get in. Between 3 and 5 get in, I should say. They don't have to put 5 in every year, but typically it's the max of 5 who get in. Here are your candidates. Eric Allen, Jared Allen, former Chief, Willie Anderson, Anquan Bolden, Jari Evans, Antonio Gates, James Harrison, Rodney Harrison, Torrey Holt, Luke Kuechly, Eli Manning, Robert Mathis, Steve Smith Sr., Terrell Suggs, Fred Taylor. That's Chief Great Terrell Suggs. Almost missed that. Earl Thomas, Adam Vinatieri, Hines Ward, Ricky Waters, Reggie Wayne, Richmond Webb, Vince Wilfork, Steve Wisniewski, Darren Woodson, Marshall Yanda. Eli Manning's the big name because this is his first year eligible, and he's already made it to be a semifinalist, and he's going into the Hall of Fame because he won 2 Super Bowls, and you're just going to have to deal with it. If you weren't an Eli Manning fan or didn't think very highly of Eli Manning's career, he's getting in the Hall of Fame. And, yeah, you're just going to have to deal with that. I don't know if he's getting in first ballot, but he's definitely going to get in. If I could only take 5 players, and my standard, again, I'm trying to think of these guys are the first 5 names. If I were drafting a team and I could have these 25 guys and start a team, the first 5 of them that I would draft for my team be Antonio Gates, Earl Thomas, and I'm not capable of being objective about Earl Thomas as a longtime Seahawks fan. He's the best safety I've ever seen. His career did not end well. I worry about Earl, like, on a personal level because he's made some, let's say, some curious decisions and exhibited some worrying behavior since the end of his playing days. But Earl Thomas was unbelievable. None of the LOB, the Legion of Boom Seahawks, none of that works if you don't have Earl Thomas at the back end. You take him out of the equation, you replace him with an average safety, it doesn't work. My favorite Earl Thomas story, please humor me. My favorite Earl Thomas story. Earl Thomas played the deep middle in that Seahawks cover 3 that the Seahawks ran, and it became kind of the in vogue defense playing the NFL for a little bit. Now nobody runs it because it's people figured it out. Also, they only made one Earl Thomas. Anyway, Earl Thomas was the deep middle guy, and nobody threw the deep post against the Seahawks. You know what I mean when I say the deep post, right? You can picture what that looks like in your head. A wide receiver running down the field and then cutting into the middle of the field for the deep ball, the deep post. You didn't throw it against the Seahawks because Earl Thomas was there and he's going to break it up, or he's going to intercept it, or he's going to maim your wide receiver. Nobody ran the deep post. Earl Thomas broke his leg in a game against the Panthers. I want to say this was 2017. The very next play the Panthers ran was a deep post for a touchdown. That's how great Earl Thomas was. As soon as he went out, you knew what you could do, but you knew what you absolutely could not do when he was on the field. Anyway, Earl Thomas is a slam dunk Hall of Fame player. He has not acted like a Hall of Fame person since the end of his playing days, really at the end of his playing days. I think that's going to keep him from being first ballot, but he'd be on my first ballot, no doubt about it. So Antonio Gates, Earl Thomas. I'd probably go of the wide receivers on the list. I'd go Reggie Wayne. I think Vince Wilfork was such a dominant force that I just associate his name with greatness. I'd put him in. And then I'm kind of torn between Jared Allen and Terrell Suggs. And again, look what I've done. I've left out the offensive lineman. And I know that's wrong. Like, there's compelling cases. All 25 of those guys, none of them would make the Hall of Fame worse. Except Eli Manning. You didn't hear me say that, but I believe it. None of those guys, though, like, I was not a James Harrison fan, like, as a person, but as a player, yeah, super impactful, a defensive player of the year. Like, all of these guys belong in the Hall of Fame. Which 5 squeeze through that list of 25 will be really fascinating. And you can make a list of your own 5, and I couldn't disagree, even if you had 5 completely different guys. I agree with Mark B, YouTube live chat. Not buying Eli Manning at any price. Body of work isn't that great. Super Bowl rings notwithstanding. Yeah, like, yeah, look at the whole picture. But the whole picture also is the 2 Super Bowls. Both of which, by the way, were won against Tom Brady. And he's going to get extra credit for that. And he's getting in the Hall of Fame. And there's nothing we can do about it. Mark also points out Richard Sherman on those Legion of Boom defenses. Oh, trust me. When it's time for Richard Sherman to be on the list, that's first ballot. Like, those Seahawks teams, in my opinion, their defense had 4 Hall of Famers. The one that won the championship, won the Super Bowl, should have won the second one. They had 4 Hall of Famers on that defense, in my opinion. Richard Sherman, Bobby Wagner, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas. I am certain that Sherman and Wagner will get in. I am less certain about the other 2. Chancellor's career was cut short because of injury, and he hasn't even been through the process to be a semifinalist yet, even though he's eligible. He hasn't made it as one of the 25 semifinalists yet. The fact that Earl Thomas makes me believe he will get in someday too, but again, some concerning behavior off the field. You can look it up. That makes it a bit less of a slam dunk than it might have otherwise should have been. Anyway, those are your 25 semifinalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Let's do one more headline. The big free agent in Major League Baseball right now is Juan Soto. Reportedly, he's met with the New York Yankees. Reportedly, the owner of the Yankees, Hal Steinbrenner, described their meeting as having been, quote, good. Every team in baseball should want Juan Soto. Every single team. There are already columnists. Bill Plaschke of the Los Angeles Times wrote a whole thing about, well, Juan Soto is not really a good fit for the Dodgers. He doesn't fit with their personality because he likes to shuffle after somebody throws him a pitch out of the strike zone. Whatever nonsense it is. It is the most ridiculous thing in the world that Juan Soto, who is basically, you watched him, you are watching Ted Williams. Okay? If you were my age, you weren't alive for Ted Williams. I'm guessing most of you listening to this program weren't alive for Ted Williams, because if you were alive for Ted Williams, you would be well into your 80s. If anybody out there was there for Ted Williams, saw Ted Williams, my father-in-law saw Ted Williams play. If you were old enough to have seen Ted Williams, let me know I'm wrong. 785-272-9429 is the text line. But the majority of you listening were not around for Ted Williams. Juan Soto is Ted Williams. Same kind of hitter. Left-handed, draws a ton of walks, hits for power, hits for average. That's Ted Williams. And he's doing it at a super young age, which, again, Ted Williams also did. Can you imagine if Ted Williams had played on 3 different teams before he got to free agency and might play for a 4th? Insane. This is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Write him the biggest check you can and don't think twice. Put him in the middle of your order for a decade. For a decade and a half if you want. Because I bet he ages well. He's got old player skills. Draws walks, hits the ball far. It's nonsense that anybody wouldn't want this player. Every team in baseball should be taking a meeting with Juan Soto. Even the teams that can't afford him. The Pirates should call. Hey, we can't pay you as much as the Dodgers and the Yankees, but like, we really want you to play for our team because we'd be a lot better if you did. It just drives me absolutely up and down a wall that there are people out there that think their team should not want Juan Soto. There are 2 teams already that have decided, yeah, we don't really want this guy. Insane. It's Ted Williams. Go look at his baseball reference page and go look at Ted Williams' baseball reference page right next to each other and tell me, spot the difference. There isn't one. I mean, Soto maybe won't hit 400, but I'm telling you, every team in baseball should want this guy. The Royals should want this guy. Mark B points out in the YouTube chat. Yeah, he looked great in a Royals uniform. John Sherman, I don't know, free barbecue for life. Whatever it takes, Juan. You like burnt ends? We'll put a Joe's Kansas City in your house. Whatever it takes. You want ownership stake in the Chiefs? I'll call Clark. I'll get you 5% of the Chiefs. You like football? Doesn't matter. What else can we do? I'll call Mahomes. You can buy in on everything Mahomes is in on. You want in on the current? How you feel about the beautiful game? We'll clear out power and light. We'll clear out 2 light. You can just live there. Anything you want, Juan Soto. Every team in baseball should bend over backwards to want that guy. And Bill Plaschke is writing, yeah, he doesn't fit with the Dodgers. Yeah, sure, fine, whatever. I hope the Dodgers don't sign him. That would be what they call unfair to put him in a lineup with Ohtani and Betts and Freeman. That wouldn't be fair. It really wouldn't be fair. And I'm not just speaking in my capacity as a fan of the National League West here. Anyway, that'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. I guess I'll throw one more thing from Major League Baseball. They're going to hand out the Cy Young Awards tonight. Tarek Skubal's going to win in the American League. Chris Sale's going to win in the National League. News you can use. When we come back, Loren Ferre, athletic director at Washburn University, spoke to our Brendan Dworzynski earlier today. You'll hear his comments on the change in leadership of the Washburn football program. That's coming up next as you're listening to 580 Sports Talk. 5:33 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero going solo with you the rest of the way. Earlier today, Brendan Drzezinski had a chance to catch up with Loren Ferre, the athletic director at Washburn University. Obviously, big news in that the Ichabods have made a change in leadership in the football program, letting go of Craig Schurig after 22 years as the head coach of the football program. And Brandon caught up with Loren Ferre, had some questions about that, where the program goes from here, and here is that conversation from earlier this afternoon. In just a second.
All right, Loren, when was the decision made?
We made the decision on Monday that we needed to make a change in the head coaching position.
And why make that decision now?
I just think, it was a decision we made that was best for the program at this time. We obviously the last 2 years we haven't been successful win-loss record. This past year we had a lot of close games, close losses, but still, the name of the game is winning, and just felt we needed to make a change to improve that record.
Do you have a timeline on when you'd like to find someone?
Well, as soon as possible. We're exploring all options right now of what we want to do, and obviously you've had a lot of people reach out that have an interest. So we're just going through that process right now.
How likely would someone from within have that job opportunity?
Well, we'll certainly consider everyone that has an interest in the job, and being part of the staff doesn't exclude you from applying for the job or expressing that interest.
And then how much of the situation goes into the pitch you're sending out there, playing a bunch of younger guys that have 2 years of experience now?
Well, I think it's big. I think we have a strong nucleus coming back of players. They have experience now from a lot of them playing for 2 years in this conference. And as this is a very competitive conference. And having players with experience coming back with a couple of years to play just bodes well for anybody coming in.
Loren, can you talk about Craig's relationship with this program and the city of Topeka? Because I'm sure this wasn't an easy decision because of the amount of impact he's constantly made on this team and school.
Yeah, Craig over the years has just been, great for the community and for Washburn. When he came here, we didn't have near the facilities we have now. He came here on a promise that we would get this built and we would get things done, like the renovations to the football stadium, the weight room, locker room, a variety of things. And he just believed that we would do those things, and we got them accomplished, and he was a big part of that, and has had a big impact on this program and in the community.
Without going into too much details about the specifics that were said, what was that conversation like with Coach Schurig when the decision was made?
It was really a brief discussion, just that, we needed to, I felt that we needed to make a change, and he understood that. And that's, it was not a lengthy discussion.
I'm sure the associate head coach title was part of the decision, but what set Zach Watkins apart as well to get the interim tag for the time being?
Yeah, I think that was the associate head coach was a big part of that, obviously, and Coach Watkins has been here 11 years, and certainly as all the coaches, they know the players, and but his role as assistant head coach was probably the biggest factor.
Do you have a timeline in mind to get the program to where you want it to be? Is there anything in specific?
Next season. We certainly believe that we have a strong nucleus of players coming back, and we add to that in certain areas. We think we can be competitive right away. So that's our hope.
what are you hoping for Zach to accomplish during this interim portion? Like what it goes into this job that he's just kind of walked into?
Just to keep the program moving forward, to visit with the players and let them know where we are in the process and how we're going about it, and sort of get their minds at ease, a little bit. It's always unsettling for players when the coaching change happens. So just to try to make them feel as comfortable as we can and know that we're moving on this as fast as we can and want to make the right decision moving forward.
When it comes to external candidates outside the program, is there any sort of specific group of traits you're looking for? Someone with previous head coaching experience, coordinators, assistant head coaches, anything like that?
I reevaluate those individually as they come in. It depends, if you're a head coach, where you've been the head coach, and how successful you've been in that program. And I think not that this is a deciding factor, but having experience in this conference is big. Because it's a tough conference, and I don't know always that people understand the juggernaut you're walking into, because you can go down through every team in this conference and you don't have a weekend off. And so I think that's important that people have that understanding of what they're getting into.
So that was Loren Ferre, actually a press conference that he held earlier today out at Washburn University. You heard Brendan Wrzezinski's voice as well as others asking questions of the Washburn athletic director and how they will move forward with the coaching search, looking for the replacement for the longtime head football coach Craig Shurig, who was let go earlier this week. Before we take a break, while we're talking about stuff that's local, I want to tell you folks about an opportunity out at Great Life that for their Black Friday special, if you buy a Great Life gift card worth $50 or more, you'll get your choice of a free bay rental at the Great Life North, the Top Tracer Golf, or one free 18-hole round of golf. What will you choose? Will you do the virtual golf or will you go play 18 holes? You'll choose. You get one choice, either one free if you spend $50 or more on Great Life gift cards. It's available for a limited time during the Black Friday special event. You should be a Great Life member. You should look into membership packages. They make great holiday gifts. And before you know it, it will be golf weather again, even though I know for the diehard golfer, golf never takes an off season. Go to greatlifetopeka.com for more information about what Great Life can offer you, or find them on social media as well. Great Life Topeka on Twitter, at Great Life on Facebook as well. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, I have a thought on the NFL MVP race, and I wonder if we are NBA-ifying the NFL MVP race. I'll explain what I mean by that when we come back here on 580 Sports Talk. 5:45 on 580 Sports Talk. Round the turn, and heading for home on this Wednesday edition. Got K-State women's basketball coming up about 15 minutes. Pre-game coverage, 6:30 tip from Bramlage tonight. 10th ranked Wildcats taking on Milwaukee. Formerly of ESPN, now of his own podcast network with Wave Sports Entertainment, Bomani Jones on social media on Sunday was prescient in his commentary during the Chiefs-Bills game that a result that favored the Bills, a win for Buffalo, was going to give sports talk hosts, national sports talk hosts everywhere, an excuse to rewrite their shows for Monday and do entire segments, A1 segments, top of the hour stuff about whether or not Josh Allen was in the MVP race in the NFL. After we had sort of taken that discussion for granted the first 10 weeks of the season, looked at the numbers, said, oh, it's obviously Lamar Jackson. It's obviously Lamar. Well, Lamar didn't play great against the Steelers on Sunday, and then Josh Allen not only beat the Chiefs, but had a signature moment, the game-sealing touchdown run against the Chiefs. And so now it is a two-man discussion about the NFL's MVP. Now, I don't know why it's not a three-man discussion. Have you seen Jared Goff's numbers lately? You're going nuts. He had 419 and 4 scores against Jacksonville. And I know that's barely an NFL team this year, but why isn't Jared Goff in the conversation? Like, at least in part of the conversation, make it a little bit more interesting. But even though Lamar didn't play well against the Steelers, he never plays well against the Steelers. That's not new. He's won 2 MVPs anyway, despite now being 2-5 against Mike Tomlin teams all time. They've got him figured out. He dominates everybody else. But I said going into the break that this is part of the NBA-ification of the MVP award. And Mark B is right on it in the YouTube comments. He's reading my mind exactly what I mean. The obvious guy doesn't get the MVP because he's won it too many times. This has happened in the NBA. Nikola Jokic should have won the MVP 2 years ago. They didn't give it to him. They gave it to Joel Embiid. And then they had to double back, and they had to give Jokic the MVP last year because there wasn't anybody else to give it to. And now he's got 3. And so far this year, the best player in the NBA has once again been the giant Serb for the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic. He's averaging a triple-double. The Nuggets, without him, are so god-awful bad that it puts in stark relief just how valuable he is as a player. There is no question he is the most valuable player in the NBA. But they didn't give it to him a couple of years ago, and they gave it to Joel Embiid instead because we can't give Nikola Jokic 3 MVPs. He hasn't won a championship. How can we have a guy who hasn't won a title 3 MVPs? How can we do that? That doesn't work with the historical narrative of the NBA. All these other guys who have 3 MVPs, they're champions. Some of them, most of them, in fact, many times over. We can't make this guy a 3-time MVP. And then he went out after not winning the MVP 2 years ago and won a championship. Was on that Nuggets team that won the championship. So then it became okay. Okay, yeah, we can give him another MVP. Yeah, he deserves it. Yeah, okay, this fits the narrative better. I wonder if that's happening to Lamar Jackson, because here's the list of guys who've won 3 NFL MVPs since they've been giving out the award from the Associated Press, which is the generally accepted NFL MVP award. Here's the list of guys who've won 3 MVPs. Jim Brown, Johnny Unitas, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. That's the list. Those are inner circle greats of the game. Like, wasn't around for Unitas and Jim Brown, but you read what people said and wrote about Jim Brown and Johnny Unitas. It's all the same stuff they were saying about the greats of today. So yeah, 3 MVPs for those guys, 3 MVPs for the modern greats at quarterback: Favre, Manning, Brady, Rodgers. Well, Lamar Jackson's got 2 MVPs. Can you really give him a third? Can you give him a third? He hasn't won a championship yet. Can you give him a third? Can you put him on a level playing field with Tom Brady? Can you give Lamar Jackson more MVP awards in this era than the guy we all agree is better than Lamar Jackson. That's Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has 2. He's got 3 Super Bowl MVPs. He's got 2 MVPs. Can we really give Lamar Jackson a 3rd MVP before we give Patrick Mahomes a 3rd MVP? And my answer to that is, if he's the most valuable player in the league, then yes. The answer is yes. You don't worry about that other stuff. The question is not about a narrative. The question is, and has always been, who is the most valuable player in the NFL? This year, it has been Lamar Jackson. Maybe something happens in the final 9 games and it changes the conversation, or 9 games, 8, not even 9 weeks. But maybe something happens the second half of this season, changes the narrative, changes the discussion. Somebody else steps forward. Maybe by the end of the year, we take it for granted that it's obviously going to be Jared Goff who wins MVP. I don't know. But this idea that, well, it was obviously Lamar and now all of a sudden it's not, I really think some of that discussion is the same stuff we're doing in the NBA. Well, we can't give this guy too many MVPs because they have to win a championship first. That's not the question. The question is, who was the most valuable player of that season? That's the only question. I would hate to see the discussion about the MVP award in the NFL reduced to the same conversation because it's so tiresome in basketball. Like now they don't want to give Jokic a 4th this year. They're going to find a way to deny him a 4th if he deserves it. They're going to say, well, it's Jason Tatum's turn. Just like it was Joel Embiid's turn 2 years ago. And it's nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Last point on this, real quick. The fact that Patrick Mahomes isn't in this conversation goes back to what I said at the very beginning of the show. Patrick Mahomes is a Ferrari. They're asking him to drive carpool this year. And I hate it. And there should never be a year in Patrick Mahomes' prime where he's not a part of the MVP conversation. And the fact that he is, I think, yes, it's a reflection on his own poor play, but I think it's also a reflection of how little the Chiefs are actually asking him to do. Get on the gas on that Ferrari for these final weeks. Please, get on the gas. Take that baby out for a spin. See what it can do. We know what it can do. We'll take one final break, come back. I got a final word next on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up and walking off this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. I do not believe the sky is falling in Manhattan. I cannot recall too many editions of the Wildcat Wrap-up with Tim Fitzgerald that were as dour as today's was. And that's not me knocking Fitz. That's just wasn't a lot of nice things to say right now about a football team that's lost 2 straight, whose football playoff dreams are dead, about a basketball team that really hasn't been inspiring and right now doesn't look like it fits together, and played a really uninspiring 40 minutes of basketball last night with your big NIL splash player giving himself an F for his performance so far this season. Doesn't feel real good in Manhattan when not so long ago the vibes were pretty immaculate as far as the 2 major sports on that campus go. 2 reasons I don't believe the sky is falling. Number one, women's basketball's 10th ranked team in the country. And that's a pretty great thing. They're going to be awesome this year. They play tonight. They play in a few minutes. In fact, right here on 580 WIBW. I believe voice of the Royals, Jake Eisenberg, one of the voices of the Royals, Jake Eisenberg is going to be on the call tonight, filling in for Brian Smoller. Anyhow, that's number 1 reason. Number 2 reason is there's a lot of season left. And it's tempting sometimes. And look, we're in the business where we do it all the time. We write narratives based on the most recent stuff we have seen. It's called recency bias. We try not to be victims of it, but it's hard not to be sometimes when you have to do 15 hours of sports talk radio a week, for instance, or fill a blog or fill a website or fill a message board with your thoughts. But I believe in the talent on that football team. I believe they can beat Cincinnati, get things back on track. And I believe in the talent on the basketball team. And I believe in Jerome Tang's ability to motivate and inspire and get those guys to buy in and find the right mix of guys moving forward. All is not lost in Manhattan. K-State women's basketball coming up next. We're back tomorrow from 3 to 6. For Brendan, I'm Dan. This is 580 Sports Talk.